Fallout New Vegas can be a very hard game sometimes, but for the most part, if you know what you're doing, the game is pretty easy, even on very hard difficulty. But then there are some locations where you just die over and over and you can't really do much to get through them. Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about today, because I'm taking a look at the hardest locations in Fallout New Vegas and figuring out which one is the most difficult. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to be looking at three main candidates for the hardest location: Deathclaw Promontory, Deadwind Cavern, and the Courier's Mile. I'll go through each of these locations one by one, analyze them, and determine which is the hardest. But first, let me ask you a question. What do all of these locations have in common? Deathclaws. Lots and lots and lots of fucking Deathclaws. Now, Deathclaws are, in general, the hardest enemies in the game. Because of this, all of these locations are Deathclaw-infested locations. But anyways, let's get into it. Now, I'm going to begin by talking about a location that is most certainly not the hardest. Quarry Junction is probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think hard location in this game. It's a large, abandoned stone quarry that is filled to the brim with Deathclaws of various sizes. However, the thing that makes Quarry Junction easy compared to the three that we'll be talking about is that it is very open. That means that you can just use the sniper rifle to get through the whole thing, which makes it a lot easier because Deathclaws have claws. Shocker. And claws can only really kill you when you're close, so being far away is obviously advantageous. This is important to keep in mind for the first location I'll be talking about, which is Deathclaw Promontory. This is definitely a more obscure location. You'd be forgiven if you played this game a couple of times and not known about it. And the reason that it's obscure is because it's one of the few locations that is on the eastern side of the Colorado River. It's basically just a patch of wasteland filled with Deathclaws. There's no buildings or anything, it's just murder. The wiki says that there can be up to 36 Deathclaws here. However, I only found 15 when I was going through it, and I'm just gonna go with the numbers of what I actually found in-game. I'm also going to be determining the approximate difficulty of each place by adding up all of the enemy's HP, which I know is not the best indicator of difficulty, but it's what I have. These enemies have a combined HP of 7,000, but maybe more if the wiki is right. Okay, I found a video of a guy clearing out this location, and I counted him killing 19 Deathclaws. So either I am very bad at counting, or the spawning just varies for some reason. Editing Logamuffin here. I have played this game for 1,000 hours, and I don't know how I didn't realize that spawning varies at like all of these locations. Anyways, despite having stronger Deathclaws, Deathclaw Promontory has the same problem as Quarry Junction. Namely, it's very wide open and easy to snipe the Deathclaws. But even more so with this location, because of the layout. There are multiple ridges in between groups of Deathclaws. And if you remember from my ever so popular first video on me killing Rar, the Deathclaw AI gets really janky with ridges like this. They don't really know what to do. Sometimes they'll run towards you, other times they won't. This makes it easier to snipe because you don't have Deathclaws running towards you all the time like in Quarry Junction, as the sniper spots are safe. But it is harder than Quarry Junction because of the way the Deathclaws are positioned. They are in big groups, not spread out. So, it depends on your playstyle. If you're going in guns blazing with automatic weapons and or explosives, Deathclaw Promontory is among the hardest locations in the game. If you're using a sniper, it's even easier than Quarry Junction. So why am I talking about it? Well, multiple videos on YouTube have referred to this location as the hardest location, and it is just not. The next location is the Courier's Mile, which is the only DLC location I'll be talking about, with it being from the DLC Lonesome Road. The Courier's Mile is also unique, as it's pretty obvious that it was designed to be the hardest location. How does it do? Well, the first thing you'll notice is that it's heavily irradiated, with you taking up to 30 rads per second in some places without any rad-X. Then there's the Deathclaws. In total, there's 8 of them, but these aren't ordinary Deathclaws. These are special irradiated Deathclaws only found in this location. So what's special about them? Well, they deal radiation damage, and they level with you. So at level 50, they do more damage than the legendary Deathclaw and have as much health as the Deathclaw Mother. But they also have a weakness, as for some reason, these Deathclaws have no damage threshold, which is obviously a lot worse than a normal Deathclaw's damage threshold of 15. This makes them more vulnerable to automatic weapons and shotguns. However, the layout of this location helps them, as it is deceptively small. What do I mean by that? Well, this location looks really big when you first look at it. It's big enough that you think, wow, I can snipe the Deathclaws here. No, you can't. You will die before you kill them. Why? Well, it's because this location isn't actually that open. Because it's not wide, it's just long. So because of that, and because the Deathclaws are on one side of this road, they're bunched together in a relatively small space that it makes it impossible to snipe them in the same way you can with Quarry Junction. Because if you hit one, 2 or more will come running. But wait, there's more. Because these Deathclaws have friends, marked men, and they work together. So as you get deeper into the location, if you can, you run into the issue of being attacked by Deathclaws while being under fire from a storm of minigun bullets, which is always fun. There are, by my count, 8 Deathclaws and 6 marked men, which have anywhere from 7,120 to 8,520 total HP. That's a lot more than the Deathclaw Promontory, especially when you consider that these enemies are a lot more difficult than the Deathclaw Promontories. Overall, this is a very hard location that will get even harder as you level, unlike most of the other locations in New Vegas. But despite this place being designed as the final challenge, there is still one more location that could possibly be harder than it. Deadwind Cavern is hell. Plain and simple, hell. Remember how I said what makes Deathclaw Promontory easy is how open it is? We'll take all of the Deathclaws of Deathclaw Promontory and put them into a tiny-ass cave, and you got Deadwind Cavern. There are in total 17 Deathclaws here. However, I'm counting the ones inside and outside the location. If you're only counting the ones inside, there's 15. But 17 Deathclaws. These have a combined HP of 8,000. But what sends this into legendary amounts of difficult, see what I did there, is 2 things. 1, the legendary Deathclaw. This is one of the hardest enemies in the game. It's only really beaten by Rar and the legendary Bloatfly. Basically, how you should think of the legendary Deathclaw is it's a normal Deathclaw times 2. It has twice the health, does twice the damage, with 1.5 times the amount of speed. It's ridiculous. Then there's the elephant in the room that I already mentioned. Deadwind Cavern has the same amount of Deathclaws as Deathclaw Promontory, all packed into a tiny-ass cavern. Sniping isn't gonna work. You are close quarters with these Deathclaws, so you have to kill them as quickly as you can. And I mean you have to. A successful run through this location will have many moments where you are face to face with a Deathclaw about to get slashed to death. The margin of error here is very small, and both of these things combine to make one of the hardest locations in the game. But, which is the hardest? Well, with what I said about the Deathclaw Promontory being very open, we can basically discount the Promontory from being the hardest location. So that leaves Deadwind Cavern and the Courier's Mile. Between these, which is the hardest? Well, the answer is complicated, as it depends on what level you are. Remember when I said that the irradiated Deathclaws of the Courier's Mile level with you? That is what makes this complicated, because at lower levels, level 25 and below, you're basically fighting 8 normal Deathclaws in the Courier's Mile. But at level 45, you're basically fighting 8 legendary Deathclaws at the same time. And Deadwind Cavern, even with its cramped spaces and the actual legendary Deathclaw, just can't compete with that. So here's the verdict. For characters level 1 through 34, Deadwind Cavern is the hardest location. For levels 35 through 44, they're about equal. For 45 through to the level cap of 50, the Courier's Mile is the hardest location. That makes this video's subject kinda difficult to answer, because overall, throughout the majority of the game, Deadwind Cavern is the harder location. However, the Courier's Mile eventually surpasses it in difficulty during the endgame. So, depending on how you look at it, both of them can be the answer. So, what's the hardest location in Fallout New Vegas? Well, what level are you? Oh yeah, I also did a bit of an experiment on this. I basically just ran through each location with a bog standard level 30 character that I created with console commands, until I cleared it. While doing that, I recorded how much damage I took, how many times I died, and how much ammo I used. Here are the results of that if you want to look at it. It mostly just confirms what I said, with Deadwind Cavern outperforming the Courier's Mile handily at this level, except in ammo use, which I'm guessing is because of me missing the marked men a lot because I suck. The level 50 location data would probably look a lot different, but I'm very tired of running through these locations, as this video was originally going to look at 6 locations until I realized how fucking long that would be. So anyways, that's the end. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that bullshit. I'm the Logmuffin, and as always, I'll see you up ahead.